to start our meeting and ask you to stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda with one change, which would be to remove item H3C. That's at the request of the submitter. It's no longer needed, so we'll approve tonight's agenda with pulling item H3C. Make the motion. Second. Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. It's unanimous. And we move into our community open forum. So we're going to start tonight. We have one speaker, Maria Bullock, and the discussion topic is Hastings Mallory. You do, and you have to use the microphone so that otherwise the closed captioning on the video portion doesn't work, and you can get in trouble for not providing closed captioning. So. Really, I can attest to it.
All right.
Ria, you will do anything not to use that microphone.
Hey, you know me by now. I don't like talking in front of people anyway. But you do it so well. Aw, thanks. It's still
Do you want to sit?
Do you want to sit here and speak?
Yeah, Maria, we're going to ask you to come up and sit in Mrs. Nickerson's seat.
Perfect.
And Mr. Boyd and Mrs. Wood are our technical experts, so they'll get the microphone on for you.
Okay. Oh, wow, look at that. No, we're good. Okay. Thank you for the time. Many of us never will forget the day that our new principal came to Hastings Mallory Elementary. Who was he? How was he going to be with our children? And how was he going to be with us parents? It didn't take long to understand that he was Larry Wink. He was down to earth, never talked above you or below you. He was always willing to listen, learn, and help. He did not turn anyone away and was inspirational to his employees, students, and parents. Larry Wink went the distance with everyone. He was dedicated to his building and the community as a whole. Larry Wink was a bonding agent for Hastings Mallory Elementary and the community. He formed bonds with everyone who came in contact with him. He bridged gaps between parents and teachers, students with other students, and community at large. Agree or disagree with Larry Wink on an issue, it really didn't matter, as he was always able to provide the bond between himself and everyone as he worked through an issue with them. His determination to make everyone be the best they could was undeniable. All you had to do was listen to the students talk about their interaction with Larry at his candlelight vigil. The students talked about how no matter what they did wrong, Larry always told them how to be the best they could ever be. The Hastings Mallory Elementary School and school district communities were made a better place because of Larry Wink. To honor Larry and his family by renaming Hastings Mallory Elementary to Larry Wink HME is a great way to thank Larry and his family for the selfless time that Larry Wink dedicated to his school and community as a whole. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Bullock. Appreciate the comments. And then next we'll have Jen Sen. And I'm not sure if we're going to ask you to come up or if we have Jen Sen is here. Jen Sen is here. Well, I'll let you say what capacity you're here, but you're welcome to share your thoughts.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hastings Mallory Elementary PTO. I've been the PTO president for 5 years. I want to take this time to share with the board and the community a few of the thoughts and plans that the HME family have discussed to honor Mr. Wink's legacy. For those who were not at HME, Mr. Wink was the type of principal that was outside greeting students, not just on the sunny days, but also in the rain, snow, and wind. He was there serving pancakes with us at 7 in the morning. He would grill hot dogs for hours at our back-to-school barbecue, attend McDonald's fundraisers, and sit with families. On Veterans Day this year, he was outside in a snowstorm in his suit and dress shoes, directing traffic in our parking lot, soaked from his head to his feet. He supported the PTO in every way. He was open with his appreciation, always thanking the chairs for events in the monthly newsletter, and never once taking credit himself for a successful event. This year we ran out of hot dog buns in an event. When I say we, it's me. By the time I got my keys and was ready to leave, Mr. Wink was already at Burn Dairy getting them. That was just the type of person he was. It's been very hard to move on, but we know that Mr. Wink would want us to continue his legacy. Since November, the PTO has been thinking of how we can honor Mr. Wink in a way that's fitting for who he was and what he did for HME. After about 5 years of planning this fall, we began the process of building a pavilion on our side yard near the playground. This project was something that both staff and parents voted for as a way to benefit our school and community. Mr. Wink was excited about the project being started, but unfortunately he was not able to see it complete. This was the last thing that we worked on together as a PTO, and it's very important for us to name and dedicate the pavilion to Mr. Wink. The pavilion would not have been built if it was not for Mr. Wink and the support he gave us for the project. One of the things that we've also discussed, in addition to the name, is some type of plaque or marker to describe the impact that Mr. Wink had on HME families. While some of us may have went to Millard Hawk, Aurora A. Cole, or Paul B. Moore High School, I think many of us realize how little we actually know about those people that at one time in our community were so important. We want to be sure that just the name Lawrence or Larry Wink lives on, but also why he meant so much to us. We've been in touch with a monument company for information about a marker or plaque that will be part of the pavilion. Some other suggestions that have come from our community is to add benches and plant a tree in that area. We also plan to have a ceremony at the pavilion that the community can attend to officially dedicate the pavilion. Also, along with HME staff, we're offering a scholarship in Mr. Wink's name. The student must have attended HME and submit an essay to the committee describing how they'll use the scholarship to better themselves. The other component of the essay will be about how they can continue Mr. Wink's legacy of kindness. We plan to continue to offer this scholarship each year for one student. Another idea that's come up in discussion was to have a day of remembrance every year that we honor Mr. Wink. This year, the day could be on the day that we do the dedication ceremony at the pavilion, and to continue this tradition annually throughout the district. On this day, we would encourage everyone to do an act of kindness in Mr. Wink's honor, to be remembered by his actions and his service to others. Many think that would be a wonderful tribute to Mr. Wink. We have a lot of planning in the next couple months to honor Mr. Wink in a way that fits who he was to all of us. We plan on having a planning meeting in the near future to discuss the ideas and give parents and staff an opportunity to share their thoughts. In closing, the one thing that I would like to ask the board is to take the time to consider this change. It's a very emotional time for the HME community, and the healing process has just started for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
and thank you for all the work that the PTO does. And we'll be discussing the whole topic in pretty short order here about feedback from the community on possible renaming or other ways to memorialize. So with that, we're going to move into a couple quick action items. Can I get a motion to accept item D in its entirety?
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Roy. Any discussion on D? All those in favor? Thank you, it's unanimous. And with that, I would like to invite Kristen Solmonson, our just approved school social worker, up to come up, and Ms. Colbert will hand you an amazing welcome gift. Accept item E in its entirety. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion on E? All those in favor? Thank you. And with that, the board sends out thank you letters for all donations, but special thanks. There were a number of donations that we just approved to the child nutrition program to help offset the cost for those that may not be able to be on those. It's very much appreciated. And with that, we're going to move into special presentations to the board. We have 3 tonight, and I'm actually going to go first, and I'm going to give a little bit of a lead up to the presentation, then we'll go through it, and I'll simply ask the board. I'm going to ask a few questions and feedback and comment and everything at the end, just because I want to get through the presentation of what the community, staff, and student feedback was based on the process that we had laid out, and then we'll have plenty of time to discuss it. But the precursor is just a reminder that, number one, this was teed up over a month ago before Christmas time, simply because there had been staff, students, and community that had come to different members of the board, wanting to know if we would consider different ways to memorialize Mr. Wink, including possibly renaming an elementary school. And so that was the impetus to even discuss it. At the end of the day, what we need to keep tonight focused on is that process and what, if anything, we want to do. What we need to avoid is discussing a specific employee in our comments, if that makes sense. So we need to be very respectful of the process and the ideas going forward. We're not discussing an employee or their particular tenure with us, because quite frankly that would violate our own rules and policies. So I hope that's enough of a disclaimer. And then the last one is simply that there is never going to be full agreement. We rarely have full agreement on anything we ever do as a board, right? And that we need to be okay with that, so no one should feel obligated to speak about certain things or to support certain things. At the end of the day, I think everyone, including those that have spoke today, want to simply do the best we can to honor his legacy. So with that, we did lay out kind of a process to gather some feedback. So what we did is, hopefully this works, yeah, we opened up a public link. We posted it through our school social media accounts, also on the website, and did a reminder kind of midway. So from January 7th to January 24th, it was open. It was anonymous. People were welcome to include contact info if they wanted. A few did, but not all that many, and that's fine. But it was anonymous. We got over 400 responses. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say 410 or so. And again, out of respect for all the feelings and details that come around this, what we're going to do tonight is discuss the feedback that we received in some kind of buckets. I'm not going to go into individual comments. The comments will be shared with the board. I'll make that file available, but it is absolutely internal only. It's not for discussion or share with anyone, because again, this is feedback on a particular employee. So I just want to make that clear, and I'll put that as a disclaimer when I send it, that file out to you. But we're going to group it for tonight. So with that said, with over 400 responses, a lot of things that were already mentioned tonight came up, including an annual event, scholarships, the idea of a plaque, a statue, or a monument in some way, perhaps a memorial garden. Obviously, renaming the school, but also, renaming a wing of the school or an area of the school. So all these things were mentioned in the feedback. But if you kind of group all those things together and put it into some sort of, visual chart, I guess. There we go. That's kind of what the pie chart would represent, and what it really equals out to is that 98% of those 400 plus responses supported one of these things, one of these ways or more in honoring and remembering Mr. Wake's legacy. Now, I want to be clear, that doesn't mean that 98% of the people supported doing a plaque, or that 98% of them supported a particular thing, but they supported at least one of these, if not more. But since the original kind of feedback was about naming the school, I do want to kind of zero in on that. So this pie chart represents that, and the white, smaller piece of the pie is the other, all those other things that were mentioned. But renaming the school, 91% of the comments, of the 400 plus, would support renaming the school in honor of Mr. Wink. Now, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't support one of the other ways as well. A lot of them would, but 91% do support naming the school. And within that, obviously, there's some detail as well, which I'll go through a little bit here. Some of the most common themes and questions in the feedback. Number one was that the general feeling was it was an important and healthy step in the healing process. Now, the timeline on this is different for everyone, right? Some people think it's a little too quick. Some people think, you can't do it soon enough. But in general, the comments were that they thought it was a good step in the healing process. A lot of questions around Mr. Wake's family and would they be supportive of whatever was done. And I think I had mentioned before, but I just want to make it clear in part of this presentation. I did speak to Mrs. Wink several times, and they're touched and honored that the board and the district would consider doing anything. They're incredibly supportive of anything that we would do, and it would mean a lot to their family. They also understand that at the end of the day, there may be nothing that's done, and they're not going to be hurt by that, but they welcome anything we would do, and believe that it would be a great way to honor him as well. So the next kind of theme or concern is what happens if there's another consolidation down the road. Obviously, that's part of the consideration. In a state that most districts have defining enrollment, that's something that is always kind of out there. And while there are no plans or discussions around that at all right now, there's no way to tell 5, 10, 20 years down the road what could happen. And I will say that I specifically mentioned that to Mrs. Wink as well, as a concern. And her response was that if this tragedy is taught them nothing else, that they need to enjoy the day and the now and not worry too much about now in the future. And her only point was to make sure that we knew whether it's renaming a school or some other way, it is what it is for as long as it lasts and they'll be touched. And so they're not concerned about that portion of it. That doesn't mean that we don't have concerns, but that's not a concern for them. Definitely a strong, consistent theme in the feedback was that formality was preferred. So Lawrence E. Wink Elementary was a strong preference over something more informal like Larry Wink, something like that. And again, feedback from the family has been that, initially they thought just because they knew it was Larry would be fine. They were fine with if we did something that would be Lawrence E. Wink as well, so no issues there. And then, again, the majority, not 100%, but the majority commented that they felt we did not need to include at Hastings Mallory as part of if we were to rename it. Many of the comments reference the other schools, saying we didn't name it all be more at Central Square or one of the other things. So that's part of the consideration for the board to know. There are certainly a few that are good with that name if we were to include at Hastings Mallory, but it did not seem to be prevailing theme in the future. All right, and then moving on to just a couple of concerns and things to think about. Does the Board of Education have the right to do this? We absolutely do. Our own internal policy is 5631 that gives us full discretion to do it. It's supported in both state law and it's been run through our law firm as well, just to make sure. But as we all know, we've renamed buildings in the past. Most recently, we renamed Miller Hawk Primary to Miller Hawk Elementary, and we obviously have other buildings named in the district as well. What is the criteria that's used? And this is one of those where sound bad, I think, but I'm going to say it anyway. The reality is when a policy says the board has full discretion, that's exactly what it means. So the board doesn't need to have set criteria, and obviously at the end of this, when we have open discussion, we can discuss that. My own opinion is, and in talking to a lot of other boards around the state, when they have dictated criteria, it actually has caused issues because if you have a very set list of things, for instance, if you want to say that we will only name a building after someone that's worked in the district 15 years, and then you get a great, impactful employee at 14 years, you can't do it because you have penned yourself into that box, right? Our policy gives us discretion, and so that just kind of is the groundwork that we have right now. And then what are the costs associated with anything that were to be done? So tonight I'm going to focus on the renaming of the elementary school, if that were to happen, because there's just too many variables and all the other things. But the costs associated if we were to rename the elementary school would be, number one, the letters on the outside. Currently it says Hastings Mallory Elementary. So if it were to be changed, Paul presents, and again, this is just a rough estimate, but it's under $3,000. And there's, at the end of the slide, I'll tell you a little bit more information. But there's two more components. There's a changeable letter sign out in front of the elementary school, like most of our elementary schools have. The understanding right now is that that is not something that was given by the current PTO. It wasn't donated or anything to the district. It may have been from the PTA that existed before the current PTO. And at the end of the day, it's kind of neither here nor there because it's property of the district. So to change the panel would be $2,800 if the school, the PTO, administration, whatever, if there was a desire to update the sign and do something new or whatever, that's different. But changing what's there would be $2,800. And then the only other part would be there's a sign at Route 11 and Margaret Road that kind of points the way people traveling there. That's a $300 cost. And then the note to all of this is that we've had many individuals and a business that have stepped forward and offered to, if not fully cover, to certainly offset the cost of anything that were to be done. The level of that, we can't know yet because we haven't determined to do anything. But if the board were to do something down the road, whatever that is, it then becomes administration's task to work with those people that have offered and offset the cost. But so for argument's sake, up there you're looking at around $6,100 as the absolute worst case scenario as far as costs go. Likely it would be significantly less than that as far as the impact. And then next step, again, this is only my version of next steps. We're about to open it up for discussion. But the intention from my side, based on feedback and people I've talked to, would be to make a motion at the next board meeting, which is February 10th, to rename Hastings Mallory to Lawrence E. Wink Elementary. It can only begin at the beginning of the school year, so it would take place next year. If that motion were to pass, then obviously then administration would need to file the paperwork. So a reminder that part of this whole series of events to this point, the timeline has been set because in order to do it for next year, the paperwork has to be filed by March 1st. And in discussing with Tom, February 10th was agreed that that would still give them plenty of time. It's possibly the easiest paperwork the state's ever done for a process, so if we were to move forward with this, it's not, that part is not difficult, there's no cost to that paperwork, and there's no issues with it. So that being said, we'll open it up for conversation amongst the board, and again, just remind you, let's focus on the process, and it is absolutely fine to have concerns and good dialogue around it, but we won't be voting on anything tonight, so it's just a discussion. So I'll open it up there.
I will open it up. I do not have a problem with naming the building after Larry. Are we going to do all the other things that were stated? A pavilion plaque, PTO, monument, benches, and the scholarships, I know the teachers at Hastings Mallory are also doing a scholarship. My only concern is there is not a set, the policy does not state a rubric, so I'm wondering if we as a board are opening up ourselves to something down the road where another, say for instance, God forbid, another beloved student, teacher, administrator dies, what happens then? When they would come to us and ask us, do we rename the athletic stadium, rename CSI, which, we all know that's kind of dormant at the moment. But just to say, we had an instance a couple of years ago with the weight room for Mr. Coppola. A lot of families wanted to rename that room after Bob Coppola, after his 40 years of great success with the wrestling team. And we ended up just putting a plaque in there. So I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here. Are we setting ourselves up for something down the road that, I guess I'm just concerned about that. But I've been the adopted board member for Hastings for a lot of years. Larry was a great man, and he certainly did love his building and the students in the building. I just, wonder if somewhere down the road we're setting ourselves up for something else. Thanks.
Sure. No, good feedback, Lori. So to your first point as far as the other things, so the other things are all currently, meaning whether it's a plaque, memorial garden, all those things, those are currently discussion topics with, whether it's the PTO, staff, whatever. All those things would have to be presented to the board for approval, whatever they want to do. We can't dictate or say what they can or can. So I don't mean that it's not a part of the conversation, but I can't control what happens there. Absolutely. And I absolutely hear what you're saying about, for instance, the weight room or other things down the road. My own personal opinion is just that I think that the board needs to use discretion. For me, obviously, since I'm planning on making a motion next week, for me, I am enough that I think this is a situation that would warrant memorializing his impact on the district. There's a lot of ways to do it, so I don't think that simply because you do it once means that you have to do it every time we lose a staff member or anything. And again, I don't say that to make anyone feel bad. If next week we have a split vote or can't come to an agreement on something, that's all right. That's healthy. I don't think anyone is questioning, to your point, Mr. Winkin and his legacy. It's just how do you memorialize that? So.
But again, we're saying because, there's no doubt Larry was a great man. But again, Andy, how do we say if another terrible tragedy happens to somebody, how do we say that, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to let you do that? How do we don't have a rubric, we don't have, you know what I mean? That's my concern.
I do, and I think for so many things, a rubric and set criteria makes sense. But I think what I said earlier, I think this is a scenario where the board changes so often, and opinions, community, everything changes, that I don't think nothing we do is precedent setting, meaning the next time the board has to do the same thing, right? They get to vote, they make their own decisions. I just know that it's within our right to do it, and for me, this feels right. I think all right. But that's just my opinion, so it's just like you're considering. Yeah, again, it's open for anyone that wants to discuss. Feel free.
Well, I guess in relation to what Laura brought up with the rubric, and I mirror his point with, it can be constricting to have a rubric as much as it sounds like it can be informative. And as a qualifier, I guess my concern with a rubric is what do you set in the rubric or something like that? It has to be a tragedy, or they have to have worked here for so many years, or they had to have had an impact, and how you really measure some of those things anyway. So I don't know how much a rubric would help in this instance in terms of what subject areas we cover. I guess the only thing that I'm struggling with a little bit is if he was the principal of A. Cole, would he still be having this conversation? Would he be taking someone else's name off to replace it with his? It happens to be that he was at Hastings, and it's easier because it's just a town name that we'd be taking. There's no emotional theoretical connection to that. And so kind of mirrors the concern. It's a slippery slope. There was a sudden tragedy at one school that has a name, all things, the person's name. Then do we just pick random buildings and areas? And so So, I mean, I hear her concern. At the same time, you know, I feel very strongly that, you know, this is probably the right thing to do. So at this point, I feel like I would probably be in favor of it, but that has weighed on my mind a little bit throughout the whole time that we've been discussing and considering this as the slippery slope. And, you know, next to that, well, what if this person happened to have the biggest impact in a place that's already named after a person, and what would we do with that situation? So,
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think in reference to what Christie's saying, I think that has to be, each and every one of them has to be taken on its own merit at that point in time. I don't know any of the history behind all the naming of the schools. I'm from another town, went to school someplace else. So I'm kind of bringing a different perspective here, I think. If it was, say, a Cole, as an example, and we as a board would have to weigh that at that point in time. Would that decision to rename that school based on a given set of, not even a set, based on a given history of that particular individual that you wanting to rename it after, does it warrant the change? Now, the name that was put on a building 30, 40, 50 years ago, I don't know the background, so don't quote me on any stuff. You would have to look at that and go, wait a minute, in today's day and time, is this name significant enough to warrant renaming the school? I don't know the answer to that, but I think the board, at that given time, would have to be the one to make that decision. Whether it's us, or whether it's a completely different board 10 years from now. And the answer may be no. And the answer may be yes. But we can't make that prediction here and now. That's my 2 cents.
It's obviously it's a very difficult situation. Before I walked in this room tonight, quite candidly, I hope the folks take this the right way. You know, I've never been a proponent of plaques and naming things. I just philosophically, I've been opposed to that all my life. This is obviously, and I've had individual discussions with a few people, and you know, if there is a right time to do something, it certainly appears this would stand in that situation for my mind. And that doesn't say I'm going to vote yes or no. I'm not trying to, but I have a different view of it sitting here 2 hours later than I did 2 hours ago. So, thank you for the discussion.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you saying that, Tim, because the honest answer is, in the past, I've had the same kind of reaction, particularly in this, going to sound maybe odd, but, you know, a lot of districts name villas after board members. That grates on me the wrong way, right? But that's my personal opinion. But to Mr. Loyer's points, the details matter to me. This feels right, but it's a concern, and that, again, if people don't support it, whether it's board members or community, that does nothing to speak to the character of the person. It's just a big decision to make. So.
Well, then I'll make the last comment is it's very different than political science. And not political science, but recognizing somebody that's been in the state legislature for 120 years. You know, this is very, very different. And that's somewhat of a facetious comment, but not pretty close. So that's very different from that. So again, I thank you all for the comments you made, and it is in this seat that I've sat in for 7 or 8 years, it's the most difficult situation I've witnessed today.
Okay. Any other comments before we move on to the next presentation? And again, at the next board meeting, it is my intention to make a motion. You know, every board member has the ability to, you know, put things on the agenda. So I would certainly encourage you, as always, to avail yourself of that. But it is my intention to do that at the next board meeting. So, all right. With that, again, thanks for all the input from the community on that, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Cole. I believe the next. Oh. Connie Galvan to go over the DSIP mid-year progress report.
Good evening. The You'll see up here it says that Lori Hedges is going to be with me. Lori is the consultant that's working with the middle school and the district on this plan. Once we got everything put together, I decided that I wanted her to not bother coming out here tonight, and that I would use her services because I have so many days and evenings booked with her, and I kind of recruited her to do something else, figured I could do this all by myself for free. So I'm a big fan of free. So if you're not sure what the DSIP is, it's a District Comprehensive Improvement Plan. In case you have forgotten, ESSA, the Office of Accountability at the State Education Department, was gracious enough to give us an opportunity to improve ourselves based on some of the data that's been coming out over the last couple of years. So the district was targeted. We are considered a targeted district. Pearlie, you're not going to be my clicker? So, you want to be the clicker? Listen, I got glasses, a microphone, a flip chart, now you're going to hand me a clicker. Really? You guys don't remember me? You'd have the clickers. So, as I said, the data from 2017-18 is what put us on the District Comprehensive Improvement Plan. So, since that time, just if this will make you smile, so you've all worked with state ed before. The plan went in to state ed on August 26th. Along with that plan was a building level plan for Central Square Middle School, also on the same data. They are a school in need of improvement. Last week, the day after our mid-year progress meeting with the DSIP collaborative planning team, we received a feedback sheet from the Office of Accountability with some feedback, and actually it was pretty good feedback and some recommended updates and changes to our plan. Okay, so it's 6 months after we gave it to them. We are going to take a look at that. We are going to re-meet like we always do. We meet monthly anyway, and we're going to make some changes before the end of the year. But tonight I'm not going to show you a whole bunch of data because, like I said, one of the things I want you to keep in mind, I'm going to talk about data, but it's not going to be as specific as I usually do. We got on the list for 17-18 data. We were notified last spring, May. We got the plan written over the summer, submitted in August. The next year's data has already been accumulated by the time we even start writing the plan. So the new data is out, the new ESSA data is out, because that's from 18-19. Everything that we're doing really isn't influencing anything yet. So don't look for major growth. I know Mr. Patch likes to put the data up side by side, and that would just be fruitless right now. Because we haven't, the stuff that we're just starting to implement, it's not having any effect yet. So you gotta give us a little bit more time. So, Tenet 1. The tenets are the different areas of our plan, and goal for that tenet. By June 30th, 2020, we're going to reduce the percentage of students who are chronically absent by 3%. As you know from our previous meeting and from Mr. Colabufo's goals, there's been a great deal of things that have gone into place. So some of the strategies, and that's what I'm pretty much going to talk about, is what have we done to even address it? And then a year from now, we'll see if we're really kicking it or not with what we've done. So we've established District Attendance Committee. That committee developed a 3-tier intervention pyramid. We've talked about that. In the maroon folders, the very fancy maroon folders, there is a pyramid plan in there. You also saw it during previous presentations. I think Mr. Colabufo had it in his. Our focus is to communicate and emphasize the importance of attendance to all stakeholder groups. That's our students, our teachers, our parents, our community members, and how do we pull everybody in on the plan. We have established intervention plans, or we call them success plans, because that's a very positive way of looking at it. So what are the things we can do specifically for, say, young Michael Loyer over there, and how am I going to get him to come to class? And his plan wouldn't look, I can put a motorcycle in it, he'd come to class. His plan wouldn't necessarily look the same as young Randy Hoyt's plan, because they're individualized. The next thing we did is we also established building attendance committees. These committees meet anywhere from every other week to at least once a month. We've identified an early identification process. So one of the things we look at, we pull up a student who's chronically absent, might be in 7th grade. We look to see, do they have any younger siblings? What the research and the data has shown us that is if Mr. Patch in 7th grade is chronically absent, his kindergarten sibling probably is too. So before that student gets to the point of being chronically absent, we put some interventions in place. Again, we have a tiered intervention plan for all the students that we are identifying. Tenet 2, by June 2020, we will improve social, emotional, and mental health well-being by increasing opportunities for services by 10% over the next 3 years. You're going to hear a little bit about what we've done here, and Mr. Colabufo is going to speak to that as well because that was also in his goals. We are going to decrease the referrals for bullying and reduce referrals for drug and alcohol incidents by 5% over 3 years. So what are the strategies that we put into place? Well, we've hired 2 social worker assistants. We hired 1 elementary school counselor. Tonight, we hired 1 school social worker that's an LCSW. That's a licensed clinical social worker. I got it right that time. We increased our work with Farnham Family Services. We enrolled in 1 additional day per week of services, so 4 days a week. We have access to this group of individuals that provide drug, alcohol, and other substance abuse counseling, as well as regular counseling for at-risk youth and families. We hired an additional special patrol officer, and we provided training for staff on the following topics: dealing with challenging students, educating students of poverty, social, emotional, and mental health well-being. That's a really big focus with us on each of our superintendent's days. So a little bit of data for you on that particular one. I pulled up the data from last year. Last year we had 9 transports from Paul V. Moore. Transports, when I refer to transports, I'm talking about children that we sent to CPEP or a similar facility, sometimes it's Golisano. We had 23 assessments for students, and that was from just last year. We had 5 transports from the middle school with 11 assessments for social, emotional, or mental health situations. With a total, I'm sorry, I'm lying. This year, we've had 9 from the high school, 5 from the middle school. Last year, we did 80. So we know we're still going to have more issues. The students on homebound for anxiety and depression, we have 17. Last year, that number was 31 in June, so that doesn't mean, you know, we're not through the woods yet, but we know that we are having an impact. It's going down a little bit. So looking at our discipline data, at the middle school, this is just from September to December of 18-19, we had a total of 409 referrals. If you look what we have for this year, we have 351. I targeted these specific ones because these are the ones that came up on the Culture and Climate Survey that just went out again, that I'm just pulling the data back from, that students and families and teachers targeted and said, these are the biggest problems that we have, or at least that's what the perceived problems are. I gotta tell you, SED looked at our discipline data and said, you don't have a problem. That's one of the areas we don't have a problem. But our local people felt that it was an issue and that we had things to fix. So we didn't ignore it, we put some strategies in place. So, insubordination, you see we're down 66 from 79. Disruptive behavior, obscene language toward staff members, also down significantly. Our drug and alcohol related offenses is up slightly. Dab pens are very, very popular right now.
Did they move to the high school?
So, did they move to the high school? So last year, at the high school, you had 642. This year, you have 379. So no, not yet. I was going to be smart, but I won't. So, insubordination, we had 106. We're up a little bit on the insubordination. The disrespectful behaviors that we had cited are about the same, and we have 2 less drug and alcohol offenses, or at least we did, but I made this last week. So 10 and 3. This one's about what we are going to do as a district leadership team to implement a protocol and structure for developing and monitoring a prioritized curriculum that aligns to our next generation standards, both ELA and math, so that we can increase the percentage of students that are meeting or exceeding our proficiency level. If you remember from the plan, we have a problem with student growth. It's not that our students aren't passing, they just aren't growing or performing demonstrating through the performance on the state assessments that they're growing at the rate that the state says that they should. So what have we done? So we've been doing some superintendent's conference day work with the next generation standards, developing a crosswalk and alignment in ELA. Actually, we are a little bit ahead of ourselves. The ELA department took a curriculum survey. We've started a curriculum audit. In the handy-dandy folders that I gave you is kind of the draft of that plan. February department meetings, we're going to start looking at the trend data. We've pulled it all up. They've actually got it. All the teachers in ELA, they're going to kind of take a look at it, and then we're going to meet again, and we're going to figure out what does the data tell us about our growth in ELA, and then we'll follow the plan. Eventually, we may change what we're doing, but it's a long process. I told them there won't probably be any writing of new curriculum this summer. It'll take us a year just to kind of decipher what do we need, if anything, to change. We aren't going to just change it for the sake of changing it. We're going to make our changes based on what do our kids do well, and what do they need some more support with. So 10 and 4. Rigorous learning opportunities for all students with an emphasis on differentiated instruction, cognitive engagement, and gradual release of responsibility. Again, this starts with the leadership. We have provided with our curriculum consultant, our consultant that we had just talked about, some professional development. We have some more coming up on the gradual release of responsibility, task predicts performance, and rigorous learning opportunities. We already had some in October, some in November. Tomorrow the principals become like evaluators in that as well. And then we have 2 more sessions on February 7th. The last thing, we have 2 more, but increasing the opportunities for our students to access support with social, emotional, and mental health needs. This is kind of a repeat. These are the kind of things that we make available to our students. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the impact that that's having, because I know that's part of Mr. Colbrook's goals coming up, and the contact time with the new social workers assistants. I did pull the data from Farnham. They are rocking the time that they are spending with our kids. They're here a lot, and I've already been asked by one administrator if maybe I could find some more money to do 1 more day with them, which would give us access to them 5 days a week. We also have a rise in our buildings. We have Oswego County mental health workers in our buildings, plus our own staff. So we definitely, this goal I'm not worried about meeting, because just with our plan of these additional staff members and the dedication, all of you guys have been so supportive in us reaching out to the kids and the families and providing the social, emotional health and well-being access. We really appreciate it. And then the last one, again, this is a little bit scaling into Mr. Colabufo's communication survey, so I'm not going to speak a lot about it. But we wanted an 85% satisfaction rate in response to the end of the year communication survey. What have we done? Well, most of you know we have robocall notifications for absenteeism or emergency information. We have Blackboard notifications for events and emergencies. We have a paperless grading access through School Tool. We've increased the parent newsletters. We talk about absenteeism and its impact on student success. So we're just trying to communicate more and differently than we have before. So what am I celebrating personally? Because this has been a lot of work for all of us. 16 years. This is the best alignment and the systematic approach to early identification and strategies to reduce any kind of absenteeism, whether it's chronic or otherwise across the district. We're all moving in the same direction. I'm very excited about that. Since I've been here, I've been begging for social workers and counselors, and I'm celebrating the fact that we have those and we have a plan for more. We have an increased awareness of our disciplinary system. We've recognized that there are some biases to it. We've been reviewing our expectations for conduct and disciplinary dispositions. We've got a group of individuals taking a look at that, and we'll probably revisit our whole code of conduct and then put it before all of you at some point. Our instructional audit is from the ground up. The teachers are going to take a look at it. We've heard for years, since we adapted the modules, that they wanted some changes. And I said, okay, we'll take a look at those changes. But we aren't just going to make changes for the sake of changes. We're going to see what do we have that's going really well and what do we need to change. So I'm really excited that we're finally getting to that point. What am I still pretty frustrated about? Feedback that comes 7 months later. It's good feedback. But it was the day after I just met with my committee, but that's okay, because I'll retire and then go become the head of state ed or something. No, I will not do that. The data that drives the plan and the placement on the targeted district list, it's generated before the plan was written, and therefore the movement toward the goal is not going to be visible for years. And I know this is a very data-driven board. And you're just not going to see, we've implemented a ton of changes, but you're just not going to see the payoff for a couple of years. It's going to take a little while. And then, of course, y'all know what implementation dip is. It's kind of like when you clean the garage. It looks really bad for a few days. In fact, really, really bad. And then eventually it looks really nice. Well, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to stir things up for a while. It's going to get messy. But in the end, it's going to turn out fine. And then I worry about keeping the momentum going with the stakeholders. We have so much going on, and it's all going on at the same time. They suffer from survey and goal burnout. We all have our goals. We're all trying to move things together. I just want to keep us as aligned as possible so that, I'm afraid to turn around right now, but if I said, what do you guys think about a survey? I don't think it would go well, but that's, we need your feedback. It's vital to know whether or not we feel like it's going well. But I don't like surveys either, and I certainly don't like about 20 of them in a 30-day period. So I apologize for that, but it's very valuable, and it helps us make decisions. What's next? We're going to look at the feedback, we'll pull the DSIP big group together, we'll make what changes we need to make, and we'll just keep moving forward. And we won't let it beat us. Anybody have any questions?
I have a more curiosity question. With the Paul B. Moore data that you gave, the referrals had dropped like to half of what they were, but the number in the identified highlighted categories had actually gone up. And so what categories were?
So Damon loves me, because now I've got him pulling them all down and sorting them all out and saying, where'd they go? What are we getting referrals on? It may not be DSIP related, but, where are they coming from? So yeah, we're disaggregating all of that. I'm his favorite human right now.
But what we're also doing, Chrissy, is we're cleaning up the process. So there was the way that they did it was insubordination was always one of them. So if someone did something, they put on insubordination as well. So what this process has really made us look at is to say, no, what's the primary? If we're going to use data, we can't say, oh, you did this, that's also insubordination, because that would skew it.
That was what I was going to ask, because you had mentioned that in the last meeting or the meeting before that you were revamping that. And so was there really 600 and something referrals last year, or was there really only 300 and something?
And that's what we're trying to find out.
Okay.
It just, it's very time consuming, but it's interesting. And he's a good sport. He's pulling it all down and got some charts on his desk and some Post-it notes. It's good stuff to watch. There's got to be more questions.
No, I just have a comment. It's obviously good stuff, but my concern is not only a board member, but as a taxpayer, community member, we continue to throw money at this problem. Continue. And all those positions listed cost money. That forces us to make decisions on other areas of the budget. which I'm always concerned about. So I've always said for 7 years, and many years before that, money doesn't fix these issues. That's a concern of mine. I had a discussion with the former mayor of Syracuse. Throw $1 billion at the city of Syracuse schools. Not going to fix the issues. So I just share that and understand as a board, we are then taking away from other things for maybe the higher learners or the middle learners. So that's just a concern of mine.
Well, are you talking about like the social emotional part? Because those aren't necessarily lower learners.
We continue to add positions for the less than desirable families. We have for years. And that takes away from other areas of the district. And it gets very frustrating to just watch that. And I'm not sure we're addressing the family issues that need to be addressed, and I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, no, if I could jump in, I mean, you bring up a very good point. If you look at the demographic, I meet with Lynn Dollar, 2, 3, 6 times a month. Seems a lot more than just our schedule is. And we look at just the demographic change that we're looking at. So I like to look at the numbers, and you look at, let's say, the last 200 students that have come to Central Square, and you look at 200 of the last families that have moved out of Central Square. It's starting to look a different demographic. We're getting more and more students coming to us from the city of Syracuse, or other areas with a tremendous amount of needs. Full IEPs, behavioral issues, programs that we then have to match, but we don't have something right now on our campus or our schools in our district that matches some of these high-cost programs that are coming with us on their IEPs. With the suicide rate, as we said, it's skyrocketing. Oswego County is #1 in the state. So I definitely hear what you're saying. I don't want to think of it as we're throwing money at it. I think of it as just, I mean, when my office was in this building, and it will be again next year, you see the issues that the students have. And in my 24 years in education, I'm seeing it's pretty scary, but to your point, there are some parents that you need more of a partnership, and we're not getting that partnership because they were the ones that, if you go back, 15 years ago, 16 years, they were the ones that were out of here for drugs or whatnot. It's their kids are now in our elementary buildings. So I hear what you're saying. It is frustrating. It's frustrating every day. I had this conversation with superintendents. There's a component that is kind of just falling apart in society, and how much is it expected of the teacher to not only teach all the content, but then all those other things that they're not getting in some homes. And in a lot of homes they are getting that, but to your point, I get it. I think we are addressing a plan, and we are aware of the cost.
I have no doubt we're aware, and I guess maybe I didn't say, I feel bad for the teachers because they're expected to be almost these students' parents, and it's, I'm not taking out on anybody, it just gets more and more frustrating the more I sit here and go like, what in the hell, what can we do to address this issue, not only in the district, but in the state? It's frustrating.
It's the whole country. If you look at NEA,
No, absolutely,
if you look
absolutely
at
is.
NEA this week and the data that's in that, it's I don't know, it's a teacher magazine. I stole it from Mia, and they talk about, like Tom said, the suicide rate, the range of children that are suffering from anxiety and depression, and it's stopping them. And then of course, then they grow into adults, so then they're not functioning there. So one of the things I'll say is, it's not associated with a socioeconomic status. It's not even associated completely and with like the whole broken home syndrome or anything like that anymore. Those days are gone. It's just pervasive everywhere.
We have 60 students that have never stepped foot in our schools for whether it's anxiety, anything that a doctor has written scripts out.
So something we've done over the last 25 years has not worked, because that's what we're reaping now.
Yeah, it didn't get broken in the last 5, and that's what's sad is I think it's been going on, that's what I mean. I think it's been going on for a long time, and it's kind of like, well, if you don't go to the gym for a lot of years, when you finally do, it takes a while.
Cheers in the making.
It is, it really is.
So Connie, I'll say that I love a lot of what you said as far as I love hearing that you're excited that there's alignment, that everything's supporting each other, so that's great to hear. I will say lots of good stuff. The concerning part to me is that our local people say one thing, state comes in, yes, how many levels do we need, but,
With the discipline, because they compare us to Syracuse City School District, Rochester City School District. So in their mind, what the beta reports say is really dangerous. They're like, no, you're not.
Because we're being compared to them.
Right, and that's, because it's the state, but then our teachers look at it, and that's good though, because that doesn't mean we want to get to that. We're just gonna say, no, this isn't even good enough. It's our local stuff.
yeah,
So we address it
just
that way.
continues the theme, which we'll hear when Maureen presents on the revenues about the state overstepping, and again, we have 670 local school boards, and yet no local control, because they keep doing stuff like this. Like, we had a problem, the local school board should and would be addressing it, but the state, even though there's not a problem, now there's a plan to address the non-problem, so.
Well,
I just want them to be clear about the formulas they're using. Last year we had an issue with our Hispanic population. This year they're doing okay, but our Native Americans, boy, they're struggling, and I was like, what? So I just want them to be, is it psychometrics? Is that what you call it, the formulas that they use to pull it? Psychometrician, don't ask me to spell that. But that's the part that really flusters me.
Well, and the frustrating thing is you're gonna see now when Maureen and I discussed this, is that the governor actually said, okay, well, you're getting more money, but no, we're not. So like, we never got community aid, now we get community aid of $150,000, but there's stipulations on how we need to use that. Oh, by the way, that's part of your foundation aid. So we're not getting any more money, and they're just telling us more and more of these unfunded mandates. Unfortunately, we don't have great news in the next presentation. Without any more questions, we'll transfer.
Sadly, I was just the highlight.
Well, I was just going to say, as the data dog, I guess now, I have a nickname. This is, to me, is really outstanding because you have really a 2-year basis to look and see, where you're at, and then you implemented all these plans. So now, if I understand it, it might take 2 or 3 years to bring it around. So I would say now's the time to let it cook, right? You can't, after 1 year's worth of data, rejuggle everything. You've got to let it time.
And that's hard because people look at it and go, what's not moving?
Right. There isn't really a
It
big
will.
deal, but you're throwing a lot of your gut feelings and experience into the mix, but now you've got a good way of data and things that you've changed. You put a lot of personnel towards it. So now, hopefully over the next 2 or 3 years, really, you're fundamentally changing the support that you thought was necessary is really going to be good in 6 years from now when they're graduating and going from middle school. And I think that over time that it will hopefully solve some of the issues that we have so that we can answer Tim's question as far as how do we do this. Well, we've got some smart folks that have come up with great ideas, done a lot of hard work. And we'll see.
It's keeping the momentum going. That's my biggest fear all the time, is this is all great.
And it's-
But then we had a speaker today that came, and he did the high school and the middle school, and I had the whole staff, I didn't, Jen Smolnik had come to me. We hear he's great, he helps people deal with difficult learners, and how do you engage the naughty kids, and I was like, okay. Well, he's really expensive. I'm like, yes, but with the naughty list comes the money. So we pay for it with the grant, and I don't know, the folks that were there, it was probably the best thing I've seen, and I was like, all right, now I feel energized again. So I think it gave us a little, because that's what I just said last week, is I'm afraid we're losing momentum. It just becomes arduous after a while. In comes Brian Medler, the walls were shaking, it was great, people were clapping. I must have gotten 25 texts today going, are you gonna buy us the books? Yes, you'll all have books in your building by 2 weeks, give me 2 weeks.
And what we need to look at that's startling, it's really startling now that I'm in the elementary building, we have kids that have always had 4s and everything, straight A kids, riddled with so much anxiety they can't get off the bus. Parents can't get them to come to school. And we're trying to figure out with our elementary counselors, our school psych, what is going on with some of our students that this anxiety is so pervasive that they're good kids, great families, they can't get them. So now we're bringing on the doctors outside of school to say, what's going on?
I mean, some of these kids, it's funny because, some of them are teachers' kids. Our teachers. we're covering classes so that they can find out how to get in. I guess, some of them I know Mr. Coluca's been working pretty closely with. Then we have other really great families, and it's not the people that you think that it is, that it's being impacted by, and I don't know how it got this way. Any more questions for me?
All right, thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, I will have Maureen and myself are going to present this together. It's pretty quick. As you know, this is kind of the theme what the governor does. He comes out with the shock and awe and gives us really bad runs. And he gave us financial runs, and so we're going to go right now. Not the way that I wanted it.
Inspector, did you get that on camera?
Unfortunately not.
Can you repeat that so we can get it on camera?
Someone's looking out for you today, Mr. Cole.
Sure somebody's recording it from the live.
But we have it on camera.
So as you can see, so last week the governor had put out his runs, partially. So the $504 million, again, this is not Central Square, this is across the entire state. There is the new revised formula, we're going to get into that a little bit. It is very confusing. $200 million, again, that's dedicated for high needs district foundation aid. $72 million expense-based aid, $50 million, and we put community school there because for the first time Central Square is going to get, and I'll tell you exactly, $154,243. So at first I thought, wow, this is great. And then the other superintendents that get it said, not really. Because we've been getting it, comes out of foundation aid, and it's earmarked. You can only use it for certain things. And it's not like he's giving us more of our foundation aid. So really, we've said this before, it's kind of a sleight of hand, I think a little bit of a trick, where they say you're getting more money, but they add 6 more unfunded mandates, and then they tell you, oh, but you get this community money. And it's really a lot of things like the after-school programs that we don't qualify. A lot of these things we don't qualify for. Okay, so this formula is approximately $1 billion less than what was proposed by a whole bunch of pretty reputable organizations like the New York School Boards, the Board of Regents, ASBO, Education Conference, and it fails to include a plan of phasing in the formula. So, as I had said, the school aid runs reflect the governor's proposal to consolidate certain expense-based aids, including BOCES aid and instructional materials aid, hardware, softwares, library, textbook aid. Now, Maureen, in the next 2 slides, I'm really going to break it down and show you the comparison. Perfect.
So these runs are really hard to interpret, and this is the published run, just Central Squares. And if you look at it, if you go to the bottom right, it looks at us, it basically states that we're getting 1.3 million increase in aid over the previous year, which is the year we're in now. It's 2.84%. As I always discuss it with you, I break it down between the foundation aid, which is really the money and the formula that drives everything. The expense-based aids, which are being driven by the expenditures of our our expense codes. So you spend more, you get it back the following year. And then the other aids on the bottom are pupil-driven aids. Now this one has been very interesting this year, and everybody's still studying it, I guess I would say, because it doesn't compute. He changed the formula. So at first you get very excited and you look at foundation aid and you think 38 million from 32.5, we have a $5.5 million increase. Well, he changed the formula. The BOCES aid is included in that number, and all of the the pupil-driven aids are included in that number. So if you look at the included numbers, and then down, you can't really see it in the red, the 154,243, which is our new community school money, is also included in that 38 million. So that's what the run looks like. what you do is you take that 2021 column, which is the proposed money for next year, and compare it to the budget that we're currently in. Because this 1920 column that they're comparing it to is not last year's 1920 column. It's a new pull from the numbers that sit currently there. So if you compare those numbers to the budget that we're sitting in now, it's almost a no-change budget. It's a small decrease, 175,000. And I can't truly tell you what the increase in foundation aid is because it's been combined into all of those other pieces of the pie. That's being worked on right now. Once we know what the true increase in foundation aid is, that will be really our new money, and it will include, in that new money, will be the $154,000 that we have to use on the community aid or the community formula, which it really isn't, like you're saying, Andy, they tied our hands a little bit, but it's on all the same initiatives that we currently are looking at, so we should be okay with that. So as it stands right now, we really do not have much of an increase in our aid. We're waiting to see what the true foundation aid number is. I feel like this is a little bit of a game play right now. They're trying to basically say that they've reformulated the foundation aid formula, which is what everybody's been screaming about, but they really haven't. They're just adding some expense and pupil-driven aid numbers into that number. So we'll see what comes out.
And then some of the initiatives that we've talked about before, $15 million for expanded pre-K 3 and 4-year-olds. So Erin did an amazing job. I sat down with her, we applied for this, and we were denied. And the reason why we were denied is across the state there are a lot of districts that already don't have a UPK program like we have. So there are other districts, and most of them in Onondaga County do not have a UPK. And again, that's all driven by, the free and reduced lunch. $10 million for after-school programs. Unfortunately, we do not hit that level of need for us to be able to qualify for those. $6 million for early college, high school programs. Elimination, and again, I want to be completely open. So the $6 million, so my view on college, high school programs, I'll openly say it, I've mentioned it before. There are things that our students, there are programs of BOCES that we could replicate here. Certain CTE programs, New Visions, it just behooves us to be part of that. There are programs that we can build back, some of the special ed programs, and that will be eventually be a solid cost to the district. I mean, a solid savings to the district. But when it gets into early college programs, I've looked at it for several years now as I don't want to be competing against our already amazing teaching staff that we have here. So if our teachers can provide associate degrees with college courses that we're going through CCC and OCC, I'm very hesitant of going in that direction of putting more of our students for the whole senior year out on campuses. I believe that there has to be a balance, and I think that right now, just looking at the courses we provide our students, that I feel confident in having our teachers teach those college classes. Elimination of the state fiscal share of certain costs related to Committee on Special Education Placements. You actually did, you want to explain this part?
Yeah.
I had a pretty solid understanding of that, and I sat down with Maureen today, and she did a really good job explaining that, so I'd rather have her explain this in her words.
Basically, the way the formula stands now, the students in certain placements that are, what do you want to say, they're basically living there, the county pays a large portion of that cost, the school pays a portion, and the state pays a portion. What this is saying is that the state's portion will become the school's portion. So it's an increase, it's an unfunded mandate.
It's rough, rough numbers, but I think right now it's like 26% is going to move to 41% that we cover.
Exactly. It was on the school board's
Yeah.
item that came out today. I can read it today.
And some of those in-treatment facilities are extremely expensive.
So basically, currently the state covers 18.4% of the cost, districts cover 38.4%, and the state shares 56.8%. So we would be picking up at 18.4.
Great job.
And many of those children, just for the record, many of those children come into those placements from when they're young children. They're not placed by the school district CSE. So they come in placed when they're, like, we're moving from 4 years old into 5 years old. They're already placed in those state facilities.
The development of statewide curriculum on diversity and tolerance. Again, there's curriculum, but they're not giving us really additional sustainable monies to do that. Comprehensive vaping and e-cigarette control package, including the prohibition of sale of the flavored vaping products and restricting advertisement on target youth, and that was one of his big things. So really, that last one, I think it's a good thing.
So, Tom, you mind if I expound a little bit on the diversity and tolerance one, because no, we'll all be so thrilled by it. The executive budget proposes to expand the current civic service school curriculum by requiring instruction on civic education and values. So state ed is going to tell us about civic education and values. The history of diversity and the role of religious freedom. The budget includes $1 million for the state education department to develop the curriculum. And again, I'm sorry to keep it drum, but again, it's a state ed developing curriculum when the local school boards, that is our task and our charge. So it's, and then, I'm sorry, can I do two more bullets before you do summary? No, because everyone knows what a fan I am of the current state government, but the old saying goes, put your money where your mouth is. Well, Governor Cuomo says that he supports public education. In his budget, even though it's a numbers game, he says he's increasing public education by 2.1%. Charter schools, he's increasing by 5.3%. Non-public schools, he's increasing 3%. So he's saying with his money that he values anything other than public education. So, like as we go to lobbying days and we get NISBA and Central New York and all that we all have to start talking that conversation so it really calls them out. I don't think anyone's paying attention that the numbers are telling what he values, and it's not public education.
No, and it wasn't that long ago that he'd come out that a teacher could leave their teaching job, go work at a charter school for a full year, and then have their job waiting back. You know how hard it is to hire just a full-time sub for a year, and because that position has to remain open. No, absolutely.
Now you got me. So my other favorite thing in this budget is, so there's a cap every year for the number of charter schools that are granted, right? If you are a charter school that in the past has revoked your, whatever you closed down because it didn't work out, or if it got revoked by the state, that now can get reissued and it doesn't count against the cap. So if you were so bad it got revoked, now you can reapply and it won't count against the cap of the number of charter schools we open. It is beyond belief how they are working against public education.
And there are certain type of student they want in those charter schools, which would then deplete the public schools of a certain type of student that we do want here, that they don't want because they can't accommodate the needs of the other students.
But they are extending the state fair by 5 days. So
Yes, they are.
that's critical. That was critical stuff. Not a big deal. All kidding aside, it's going to sound like a facetious question, but I think you have a good answer when I talk to somebody. If, God forbid, marijuana becomes legal, are any of those supposed revenues coming back to the schools?
That's not anything that I've heard.
I haven't either. That's a great question.
But
Yeah, I
generally,
mean, we got problems now, and that's fine.
but generally when that type of stuff happens, like right now, inside that foundation aid, we get big lottery money, but it just comes through that channel, but
Yeah, I
it doesn't
understand.
actually increase our number.
Yep. A shell game, so to speak, is what
Right.
you're saying.
Right.
Can you go back to the
Yep.
last slide? Wondering how the elimination of the fiscal share of Committee on Special Ed placement, how is that going to impact all of us?
Of how many of our students are in programs like that? Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
I mean, are we going to have to say, well, you can't have this, you can't have
No,
that?
we can't do that because they already come to us. It's part of their IEP. We can't.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so that means that we're going to have to pay more money that the state is saying we're not going to pay anymore. We're going to put that on the schools.
And that's at 18%.
we'd have to look to see how many of our students are.
I should like to know maybe I don't even know how many kids would be 2 or 3 years old that went into a facility like that.
Well, we have that information.
I'm saying, I didn't just ask what dollar, how much of an effect would that be on in a budgetary per dollar?
Okay, yeah.
That's
So-
what you're asking.
So, I don't want to start out with Dr. Collins. You wouldn't have, Dr. Collins,
We're talking about it.
Yeah, so we only have a couple students that it applies to, and they're only there overnight a couple days a week. So it's about $6,000 a month
Mhm.
for the tuition.
yes,
For our portion of it, so it might,
For our
it might
portion.
double that.
okay. But again, you get 4 students that just move into the district and have that.
That's an ever-increasing thing, is what I keep hearing. So, is this going back to the 18% discussion we had a few minutes ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so the 18%. So, and that money's coming from where?
Our budget.
So for example, that's the New York
Correct.
State School for the Deaf, or the New York State School for the Blind. So it's like a residential facility.
Right.
Entry. Residential.
No, we were not applied to a residential treatment facility. So these are the New York State School for the Blind, New York State School
So
for
it's
the
just
Deaf.
those 2. It wouldn't be anybody else that is.
Those particular state fiscal facilities are New York State schools, where kids are placed residentially. The other ones you're talking about, residential treatment facilities are different.
Okay, all right.
And one
But
point,
to answer your question, it's unfunded mandate, yes. You can't budget for that.
Correct, I think that's the moral of the story.
Right.
If there's 18% more of whatever, then now we're having the shoulder on our back, which goes right back to what Andy was saying before.
Right.
just one point of clarification, for Joe Q. Public and Central Square School District, for Maureen, from the adopted 2019-2020 budget to the first run of the governor's proposal, we're down $174K in aid, correct?
Correct.
That's a fact.
Yes.
Okay. That's important for the community to understand, because what they're probably seeing or being told is something like $3 or $4 or $5 million increase, which is not even remotely close.
Correct.
Exactly.
What they're being told was the first screen, $1.3 million increase.
Right, and I just wanted to clear that for the streamers or whoever's interested in it. It's 174 reduction in current aid, bottom line.
Yes, of course, no reduction in unfunded mandates and or econ, yeah.
Yeah, so again, this position on school funding are guided by the 5 principles. You can see right there, I don't have to read it to you. We put these slides out every year. That's it.
So back to that $5 million to $174,000, what mechanism do we have in place, I guess besides this forum, to ensure that our public is getting that picture painted for them crystal clear? How do we do that? How do we get that word out there? Because if they're hearing $5 million cash, and we're actually upside down $174,000, that is such a big deal. So what mechanism can we use, do we have, or can we fabricate to get that information out there? Anyone?
Well, it's going to be the exact same thing in all my 4 years of superintendency. They say we're going to get a certain amount of $1 million increase, and then we don't. So we put it on the website. We had a forum a couple years ago. Not a lot of people came to it.
It's more, I would say, at the higher level. It's the advocacy of school boards, superintendents, ASBO, the legislative breakfasts we used to do, that type of thing. Because I don't know if you can individually talk about a specific number. It's more the concept, like what you're saying, Andy. It's about, they don't add the amount of funding that we know we all need. And they add unfunded mandates onto that.
Yes. Yes, except people are seeing, the concept is ideal, I get it. But that's not what they're seeing, that's not what they digest, it's not what they eat. They eat the number. And we've already got a crook that's pulling all these strings anyways. So how do we fix that? How do we go out there, if we can't fix it, how do we go out there and make the public understand that this is what's happening. This is why things need to change in this state, in my opinion, Tim. And how do we get that word out there? How do we as a school district get that word out there? That now, $5 million, $174,000 upside down, 18% increase, more unfunded mandates. How do we get that word out there besides me sitting here complaining about it right now?
I could put an email blast out, a text blast that goes out to everyone with just the link, and it just says, literally one slide, and says, this is what he says that we're getting, this is actually what it is.
We gotta call them out.
But that's first run too, right? So
Correct.
that's the other thing is, to the point earlier about survey exhaustion and everything, it's information exhaustion. So do we spend that kind of, email or survey capital now, or do we wait till we have the final run? I know. Yeah.
Well, the worry that I have this year, compared to last year, is they always do it. He comes out and gives us a shilling, and then all of a sudden he gets more. This is so low right now, and then the weird thing about the new formula, I was talking to Maureen, we're really worried now. Usually we would say, let's just hit pause for a second, but now even Chris Todd had said, it is not going to be good. It's not going to be good.
Look who's running it down there, for Christ's sakes. I mean, think about who's running the legislature down there. Think about it. They don't give a damn. They don't care. We can do all the lobbying in the world. We can get Will Barkley. I mean, he believes, he's supportive of it. But you know what impact he has down there? With all due respect, zero.
Expect the news.
That's what we gotta fix.
Camera on? Is that camera on? Is that running?
It's on recording right now.
Feel free to say anything I've said. Feel free. I'm not a coward.
I'm asking.
Like some of those clowns down there.
Let's run it. That's what I'm saying. Make sure it's on. Now, I'm gonna get a live feed.
Live feed.
Kind of working on 12 more lists next year.
So Tom jokes, but that is the reality. It's not, I'm not saying that they would, quote, get back at us, but the reality is, they're creating there is not I would challenge you to find a district in New York State that is not on one of the, quote, naughty lists. And it's because the naughty list initiates one of the 18,000 levels of government and state ed department that needs to get involved, which is job security. Now, are we done with that audit?
Yes,
Okay, good. We're done with this?
we're done.
Okay, so I can say this without getting us in more trouble. So I'm speaking to a state employee, and they admit that what they're doing in our district is not their primary job. They no longer have a backlog of work of their primary job, which means there's not enough work for them to do. So they've created a new thing. It's a new thing they're doing to protect the job. Has no impact on our day-to-day and how we serve our students, which should be our mission, but that's not to say that
And this state has tolerated that level of incompetence for years and years and years.
And unfortunately, that's why more and more people keep moving out of the state. So with that, more to be, stay tuned too. We're going to continue to lobby and whatnot. The next time we do a presentation, hopefully we'll know a little bit more when he comes out with the second round.
I think on the Friday update, we'll at least know those true numbers.
Yes.
We'll send that out.
Yep.
They're doing that right now. There's a webinar tomorrow.
Great.
But Chris said not to, Chris told you it's not
It's not
gonna
good.
be
It's not good.
overall.
Yeah.
Well, and back at whatever that lobbying day was, or meet the representative day, Will Barkley said the same thing. He said, listen, it's going to be brutal. He said, because of that Medicaid number, that $6 billion.
And then the expenditure. So it's the idea that, okay, well, we're going to give you a deal. You spend a lot more, and then we'll give you a good. But that's what we're struggling with. Give us actual monies to be able to run it. How do you run a company of $81 million budget and not have any new money? With salaries and insurances going up. It's not possible. The price of doing business is not possible.
I know this will make probably all of our staff and administration nervous, but I firmly believe, I would say this to Governor Cuomo's face, you could reduce public education funding and spending by 10% across the board, and we would do better if you just got rid of the mandates. Like, let us control and run and do what we've been elected to do, but we can't do that, and that's
Take it one step further, get rid of state ed entirely.
Absolutely.
All right.
Tim said it.
Keep me forever, guys, because then I won't be hired. No, I'm okay. Stay tuned.
Hey, Tom, just a recommendation, no more photos are required in your presentation.
Duly noted. We did reduce it this year. There will be none on the next one, I promise.
Thank you, all good presentations. Let's move into item G, reports. The Board of Education presentations are listed on there, so you can always access those to see what's upcoming. Board member reports, I'll open it up to Mrs. Fishman. Do you have anything? No. The only thing I wanted to do is just give a little report. Our city board rep not able to be with us tonight, but I did speak to Mrs. Taskins earlier and just want to pass along a couple things. Number one, the last time we discussed city, we had a discussion around the setup that if we were to bring programming back in and it impacts employees at city, that they then go on a callback list that we have to adhere to, and that wasn't reciprocal. Vanessa did a bunch of digging. There is reciprocity. So if, for instance, it worked the other way, if we send a bunch of students, it impacts our staffing here, then we are able to put our staff on the callback list for BOCE. So there is that reciprocity for whatever that means for you. And then the only other thing I want to mention was we had questioned something around the staffing salaries, and so Vanessa just wanted everyone to know that the rough measurement, how they kind of determine salaries, is they take the position that they're hiring for and take the average of the 9 component districts, and that is the kind of the starting point and basis. So again, doesn't necessarily change your or our view of whether or not there's appropriate spending for what's being done, but I think the way they're arriving at it seems pretty fair and logical to average 9 component districts.
And it was determined in several BOCES meetings that the small amount of students that we're looking to bring back is not at all going to impact anything and put anybody's job in jeopardy in BOCES, because there's a waiting list that are really long. They'll easily fill those, build our own program.
All right, open it up for the entire board. Student board rep, anything you'd like to bring up tonight?
Yes, so Mr. Colbufo, Mrs. O'Meara, and myself met with the Chamber of Commerce President, Mr. Girotti, and we had a really great conversation about the program. One thing that came out of it is, as opposed to just one specific company that we're going to reach out to, we want to kind of diversify it within the Chamber and get a variety of companies. We think that's more plausible that as opposed to get one company to offer 10 employees for an hour and a half once every 2 weeks, we're going to get one from one company, one from another. And we can also look into the community. We met with Peace Incorporated, a representative from there today, and it was kind of surprising to me how easy it sounded to get a mentor from just the community involved. It's just one background check and then 2 recommendations that they need, and that they're basically qualified to do that. We still have a couple liability questions that he's going to get back to us on for the chamber, and from there, we'll move forward. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be probably based out of the Bruce Fire Department. Maybe once in a while we'll go to a business. I know Bear Creek was in the conversation because they've got that new open plaza. Maybe reach out to them or just some other company. But right now we're still moving forward.
And I just want to say how impressed he was, our visitor that came from Peace Corporation, and I was as well, about Logan. And so Logan had basically just said to him, as if Logan was another staff member, the conversation was the type of students that need mentoring, at no fault of their own, kind of like a conversation we had a little while ago during this meeting, but they're lacking that positive support at home, and they need that. And so it's not only going to be, helping them with, public speaking and possible interviews and whatnot, but just be able to connect with somebody that has been successful. And a lot of the people that I've spoken with live in Central Square. They're part of the chamber. They own local businesses. They went through Central Square. They want to give back. And so to me, that's the partnership. That's that goal of our goals we talk about with the partnership. But Logan did an amazing job representing this district. Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. I'll open it up to the rest of the board. Any topics or items to bring up? Ms. Wood?
I had the opportunity to attend the retirement party at Hastings Mallory for Denise Corsat. Very nice party. After 33, she's retiring, I think Friday, right? Is it Friday's her last day? 33 years of service to our district, and want to congratulate her on her retirement.
Anything else from the board? All right, that will move into the rest of our agenda. Can I get a motion to accept item H1, approval of textbooks?
Make the motion.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Sorry, Mr. White. Okay, thanks. Motion passes. Can I get, I'll make a motion for item H2, approval of the second reading of proposed district policies. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McCarthy. Just to note, this is our second reading, so assuming that they are approved, they will become our new policies and replace existing ones. So any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, it's unanimous. Can I get a motion for item H3, approval of overnight student trips, and as a reminder, this is just A and B, C was removed.
Make the motion.
Second. Mr. McCarthy with the motion, Mr. Lloyd with the second. Any discussion on H3? All those in favor? Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve item H4, the single audit report. Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. McCarthy with the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Can I get a motion for item H5, approval of the extra classroom activity funds financial report?
Make the motion.
Second. Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Lloyd. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Item H6, approval of the management response to extra classroom financial reports. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second. Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Lloyd. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. I get a motion for item H7, approve the Board of Elections memorandum of understanding for the 2020 school board elections.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Laurie. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Thank you. And the last one, I'll make a motion to approve item H8, approval of the intermunicipal agreement with the Osceola County Highway Department. Can I get a second? Second. Second, who was that? Okay, let me get a second for the students. Second. Mr. Lloyd. Was that a setup? Any discussion on H8? All those in favor? It's unanimous. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent for his report because I skipped it earlier. So we saved the best for last.
We'd like to congratulate the many art students for their submission of art pieces to the Scholastic Art Competition. They are the following: Gold Key winners, Emily Barnes, Evelyn Dolce, Michaela, Domikowski, Marissa Hilton, Jasmine Netto. Silver Key winners, Hannah Carpenter, Evelyn Dolce, Michaela Domikowski, Harrison Johns, Kelsey LeBlanc, Karina Stewart. Honorable mention, Hannah Carpenter, Jenna Countryman, Evelyn Dolce, Krista Guy, Isabel Heath, Taryn Leach, Jasmine Netto, Hannah Phippen, Gracie Rifen, Katrina Stewart, Emily Baru, Ben Volpe. Julia Mann is going to be the Channel 9 Athlete of the Week. They are filming her this week. Congratulations, Julia. HME 4th and 5th grade chorus sang God Bless America at the Crunch game. Our executive director of elementary education, Aaron Phillips, was there, sent me some really nice pictures of the students there. It was great. And Mr. Hearn. On Saturday, did a fantastic job. Congratulations to the members of the Central Square ERA Guard and JV Guard for your outstanding performances on Saturday at Phoenix. The Central Square ERA Guard placed second, scoring above two other winter guards. The Central Square Junior Varsity Guard placed first, scoring above four other guards. Great job to all. Again, at the next board meeting, I will be presenting the next data point, and that is going to be about the student engagement through sports, music, and clubs. The people at Forecast 5 are in the process, and they're almost done. We'll be able to literally not only be able to say, okay, for our middle school and high school students, these are the percentage of students that are participating in an extracurricular, whether it's a sport, club, music, band, but this is the average, their average GPA. This is the average attendance, and then this is their behavioral discipline history. But then it'll also go even further. We've known, we've had many board members who are children that are part of DECA, and they know how amazing that is, but we can actually say to a parent now when they're in middle school, hey, when they're interested up there, here's the average, which I believe it's about a 96.5 of students that are in DECA. Here's their attendance, here's their GPA. We can say that for sports as well. And I think this is important because when we talk about dollars and cents, we talk about adding another volleyball team or another basketball modified team and whatnot. If the girls out, if we can actually back that up with the data that shows why we're doing it, I think that goes a long way. And I think our taxpayers deserve that. Big shout out to the wrestlers that competed at Phoenix. I got a phone call Thursday night from Chris Burns, superintendent at Phoenix, and he said he's never seen a school with such amazing sportsmanship, not only from the coaches, but from the players. He walked past the Central Square players, and they were on their bench, and they greeted him and said, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for having us here, sir. He was floored. I must have got about 10 text messages from Chris Byrne, just how impressed. Not just because he used to be a teacher in our district, but just how impressed he is with our students. It was great. That concludes my report.
Can I make one comment to yours? In addition, maybe you guys talked about it at the last board meeting, but I believe Julie Mann was the first male or female person to hit 1,000 points as a junior. So, that was awesome.
Oh, yeah?
Where's your basketball?
Yeah, How do you train your local? That's wonderful. Yeah, and she's too.
With that, can I get a motion to close the meeting? Second McCarthy. And I'm going to give the gauntlet run to Mrs. Sunday. Any discussion on closing? All those in favor? Next meeting, February 10th. Thanks, everyone.